Hello my friends, welcome back to the channel. We have a little bit of a new home card for you today. I am using Shelby's house, Kasia's house, Wendy's house, and we're going to do a little bit of masking. We're going to do a little bit of color glazing. If you don't know what that is with color glazing, it is where we're going to, because Copic markers are transparent, so they lay on top of each other and they can enhance your work. And if you don't really like it, you can change things up a bit. So we're using some black ink. I've got a post-it note here and we're just going to mask that center house. I haven't cut the whole image out because we don't need to. I've got a multi-liner here that I'm just going to fill in my lines, just anything where I may have not gotten quite so close to the black line as I should have. So when you cut out an image, make sure you cut out sort of inside the black line, because then you won't end up with any dark lines. Also gaps in lines, I should say. I am using for my houses W9, so W8, W5, W3 and W1. The 8 is going to be used for the roof, so they're going to be a little bit darker. With the houses, we've got C10, so I didn't have W8, W10, I didn't have W8, come to think of it. We're also using C7, C5, C3 down to C1. So the darker colors like the W5, W8, W5 and W3 are going to be on the roof, and going down to the 1 in the rest of it. I'm mostly going to color my houses pretty similar. I'm trying to make the window sills pop out. There is a lot of detail in these images and they are really gorgeous. So I'm just trying to make sure that my windows and my door frames come out like they're not 2D. So I am putting a shadow on the left, my left, your left, it's even your left of the images. That way it just makes them stand out a little bit more. I'm doing that with the rest of them. I did forget that this part was, I did forget, I should say, forgot. English. I forgot that this is included in the house. It's not a separate house, Nat. So we're just going back to color that in. So I've got 2 houses that are going to be the warm greys and 1 house clearly that is going to be the cool greys. In this house that I'm coloring right now, we've got a lot of lines that are already drawn in. So we're just adding a couple of extra lines for quotation mark brickwork. In this one, we've got, there's a lot of detail in this. We don't have to worry about it quite so much. I do colour my porch a little bit wonky. Got a little bit carried away there. But it's going to be all right. It's going to all be all right at the end of it. Similar sort of deal. I'm going to have my shadows on the left-hand side. Obviously, with my roof there, it's going to be a little bit variation, so I'm trying to make it come out. So my shadow's actually on the right hand side, but that's because that's the way the light is going to go. Okay, what I've just done there is I'm adding a little bit of texture. Now you can't see it too much, hopefully over in the videos you can, with a little bit of rubbing alcohol. Now we don't get isopropyl like the States do. We get, it comes in a bottle with a green alligator, put it that way, green bottle with an alligator on the top. It's rubbing alcohol. I don't really know the strength of it, but this is just, I think it's probably pretty low because we can't get a too high concentrate of isopropyl rubbing alcohol here in Australia, but I'm using that on a little cloth just to dab it. What you need to do is do this before you do anything else that you wanted to color. So, for example, if I was colouring a pair of jeans and I wanted a little bit of texture on it, because sometimes, quite often, jeans have a little bit of texture, a little bit of mottling, shall we call it. I would colour the jeans and I would not colour the skin, okay? Because you're going to give your face a bit of a weird combination, weird texture, okay? So colour the image that you want to have the texture on it, use the rubbing alcohol, and then let it dry, which of course is really, really quick. Then colour in the skin or whatever else you're not worried. We're not going to have a colour on it. My grass here is G28, YG67 and YG03. I am just doing a lot of squiggles. A lot of squiggles here, there and everywhere. I did go around the very end of my pathways. I can't remember what colour. I think it was a brown, but it could have been a W8, and that would work just fine because it's not really going to matter whatsoever. I'm going to cut some of this colouring out because you don't need to see me. It's going to take a little bit. See me fuss with this a little bit, because in some places I need a little bit of extra, like tip to tip, like right there, just to give it a little bit of blending in, using the same combinations on my shrubs or whatever you want to call it. And having the grass at the the dark color at the very, very bottom, and then using a lot of lighter colors, that's going to make those separate, and it's not going to be a blob of green. This is where we're going to have our C10. Now, I did notice my C marker was starting to pull at the brush nib. It's not something I used very end nib. So what you might notice then, I had both ends of my marker off. So if you pay attention to your nibs, if they're starting to look really, really wet, quickly take the end of the chisel tip off, and that sort of equalizes the pressure in the tip, and this way you won't get a blob, and it will save you a lot of headache, especially if I did it with the C8, because that's pretty darn dark. That would have caused me a lot of major drama. Who knows what I would have done, but we would have fixed it, because I don't like to start over. I'm too lazy. No, I'm not. But this is where we're going to start doing our color glazing. So at the moment we're using R24. Now, I decided that this was way too pinky, and I thought, let's go with blue violets. So the ones we used was the R24, 22 and 20. We are going to go and use a 27 on our little flag up the top there. Our blue violets are BV08, BV04 and BV02. Now, so in this situation, I've used the BV04 to colour glaze around the windows and everything else. I've added a little bit of extra colour with the 28. I've pretty much just played with it until I was happy with whatever was going on. So where I've already put the red down, I've used the BV04. Where I'm going to put the purples down, I'm going to use the R24 to colour that. So I've done both the houses now because I did exactly the same, so it's no big deal. This is where we're going to use the BV04. So the blue was a bit bright and it wasn't sort of blending in with the rest of it. So we're going to go over the top with just the BV04 just to give it a tiny little bit of a purple shade, which then sort of lends itself to the other houses. The chimneys and the steps are just going to be C3 and C1. I'm not fussing with that too much whatsoever. There's not a lot of playing around. So we've got the window sills, chimneys, the little, what are they called? Windowsill boxes. And we're going to go down to the R24, and we've got the R27 for our little flag, only because I can't help myself. This is a B000. It is way too light, so we're going to go back in with the B0401. I am not colouring the whole thing. I'm actually sort of doing little L's, and you can sort of see that on the middle door there, which is a lot clearer to see rather than the windows. What I'm going to do then is go back in with my O and just soften the center of the L, and wherever else in the smaller things I may have only done like a dot or something or a line. I'm just going to soften that. So I've got BG01 and BG000. I'm going to do a flicking. I'm doing a flicking sort of technique away from my image, and then we're going to soften that with the BG000. So the BG01 and 000. This is just some purple from my stock. If you have been to my channel before, you know I tend to die cut things out of the center and then use it for something else. I'm not going to give myself a lot of scraps if I can possibly help it. We've raised it up with a bit of foam, bit of glue. We're almost done. This is the All Occasion Sentiment range. We found a little new home. It's very, very long, and I've just got some nice little strips that I'm going to use a T-ruler just to make sure that's straight. The lucky last thing I'm going to do is using some liquid sparkle and paint that onto my windows, because, you know, windows need a little bit of sparkle. Not my windows. My windows are very, very dirty, but, you know, it's going into winter, so they're only going to get dirtier. I'm just going back through with the same colours for a little bit of greenery that I missed. That is my card. I hope you enjoyed it. Hit the subscribe button, and I'll talk to you very soon. Bye.